Welcome. Today is Friday the 13th, 2026, March 13th, 2026. We're here. There's more info out about General William Neil McCassland. I did an episode a few days ago about him. And so I want to discuss that based on astrological time points and kind of the information added. But before I get to that, I'm going to just briefly discuss the astrology of next week. So next week we have a lot going on, and what I'm going to do is discuss the new moon in Pisces today, and kind of also we're entering the spring equinox, but I'm not going to look at the chart of the spring equinox until next week, but they are tied into one another. So I also want to acknowledge kind of the astrology that's coming up today, next week. So let's get into it before I get into the added information that this, what is it? Let me just check. The Bernalillo County Sheriff of New Mexico for Neil McCassland. So before I get into their press release, I'm going to get into the astrology of next week. And so with next week, we have, we are going to have a new moon in Pisces on the 18th of March. That'll be at 28 degrees of Pisces. So anytime we see something towards the end of Pisces, 28, especially 29 degrees, anything where you see something at the end of a sign, it's called the anaretic degree, the last degrees of a sign. And that is a very special part to look at with astrology, because the anaretic degree, if you think about it as like, one of the ways I like to translate it is it's like that degree is like the keeper of all the knowledge of the whole zodiac sign itself. So if you have anything at the end of that, any sign, the anaretic degree, it's like it's been there, done that in every degree of the sign. So it has a lot of knowledge in the sign of Pisces, this new moon in Pisces. And then on the 20th of March, the sun enters Aries. That is the astrological new year. And that is at 10:46 a.m. I will look at the chart next week. And also the same day at 3:33 p.m., we have Mercury going direct, which has been in retrograde. If you hear music on X, you can't hear it on YouTube. This is 639 Hertz morning sitar tabla meditation for emotional healing and anxiety relief by Indian Healing Music on the YouTube. So that is their station, Indian Soul Meditation Music. And it's the only thing that's like really grounding me today. So I'm keeping it on. But I'm going to get into the chart of the new moon. So the new moon in Pisces on March 18th is 9:23 p.m. Now that is for Eastern Standard Time. So just calculate what time zone you're in. And this is sun and moon, 28 degrees. When we have a new moon, that's when the sun and moon are aligned. They're conjunct. And with that, what I like to call, what we look at is what aspects are going on around this time. I would say that this is kind of a bookend to our eclipses. So our eclipse was on March 3rd. That is a lunar eclipse. So that's a full moon eclipse. And that eclipse was at 12 degrees of Virgo. So I'm looking at this as a bookend. Full moons, letting go, releasing what no longer serves us. New moons, what are we cultivating? What are we bringing in? Some people like to use the term manifesting. I'm kind of working with the term manifesting, but what are we cultivating is how I would like to look at new moons, because it could be that things are cultivated on that new moon, but we also want to look at what the sign is in that the moon takes place. So this new moon is in Pisces. Pisces is the energy of the mystic, the psychic, the intuit, the healer, the feeler, the empath, but I also and the ocean. So with this cultivating new moon energy in a watery sign of Pisces, this can be ultimate faith, really leaning into faith, miracles, with the idea that I believe, and this is just how I've observed over my lifetime, is that intuition is the ultimate form of data, gathering data, because intuition is something you can't necessarily. Some people are just born with intuition. It's a skill you have to work on, though. And a lot of times, the way I see intuition is, for example, doctors are very often very intuitive. They have many, many years of school, but at the same time, when they're working with a patient, they might have seen some things and felt some things, and that you can't really teach that. A medicine woman, a medicine man, you know, intuitive healers. So this is an intuitive healer point, an anaretic degree of Pisces. So a lot of learned experience and intuition coming together with this new moon. Then we have, the change of season, the astrological new year. We went through the lunar new year. Now we're in we'll be entering the astrological new year, the spring equinox on this hemisphere. And so when I'm looking at this new moon in Pisces, the other things that stand out to me now, this ties into also what if you go back to one of my lives this week, I discussed the missing chart of General McCassland, the one that we had at the time, which was 11 a.m. on February 27th. So one of the things that I want to point out is that with that chart, anytime we have eclipses, and he's a perfect example of an eclipse story. An eclipse story, people, places, and things happening, events happening. The nodes are very active. So with his missing chart, this is just a contextual example of how we have very activated nodes right now. So the north node is at 9 degrees of Pisces on this new moon. And Mercury, who's still retrograde, when Mercury goes direct on the 20th, will cross over this north node in Pisces. The north node point is kind of where we're being led to. And so today, as I record, for example, I said on my last live stream that we're going to have to see when Mars gets to the north node what this story with General McCassland brings up. And so today, Mars is with the north node officially at 5:58 p.m. So when we're looking at transits, we have so many planets active with this node right now that this is a nodal story. And so that's a reason why I kind of want to bring this information in, is like Mars is the god of war, and today he is conjunct the north node in the sign of the ocean god, or the oceans, salinated water, fish, schools of fish, Christ consciousness. So the upcoming new moon, I think, for all of us is going to tie into a story that started probably around February 17th. And it has continued forward. There's more information. With the new moon, we're also going to have Mercury getting ready to station direct, go over the north node, and bring us some sort of missing information that we did not have. So this is in our personal lives. This is in the public. This is in everything that's going on around the world. We're going to have some missing information. Now, Pisces does represent the mystical side of life. And I did say on many videos to watch the water, because it is about the water right now. Now, Mars will have moved past the point of the north node, but technically, if somebody was born under this new moon, I would say there's a stellium between Mercury retrograde, the north node, and Mars in Pisces, behind the sun and the moon. So we're kind of in a hidden place. Like what's in hiding is coming to the surface of the water. I'm going to talk about water more than I'm going to talk about. I think we've got to really look at the energy of water here. And so, whether it's like I saw a Pam Gregory video. She's not a comedian. She's an astrologer. And she had a gentleman on to talk about the crystalline energy of water and the importance of water and energy. And it got me thinking about the north and south node and the elliptic point of the rotation of Earth. And I have this card out, and I was thinking about how the energy kind of is this vortex. So instead of like, if we imagine this facing this way, and this is like nodal paths, like I wish I had a pencil, but if we imagine like a pencil here and like this spinning around, it has me thinking about the energy of Pisces and how on the nodal paths, it's not just, oh, we have Mars conjunct the north node in the sign of Pisces today. We have a vortex of Mars energy around the nodes, and we have these vortices of energy working around, whether we want to call this a realm of Earth or whether people see it as a globe. So I know there's like a flat Earth, round Earth argument, and people call round earthers, flat earthers are idiots, etc. And so I see this as like a perspective. If we're zoomed in versus if we're looking from a different perspective, right? What if both are true and we're working with vortex energy? So if we think of like water and you look in and you see like, the movement of water, if we imagine Mars in that movement today, which is action, which is war, I would say the Strait of Hormuz is a great example of how these vortices are activated. And so our energy, as however much percent of water we have within each cell in our body, is very much reflected on the outside, where there is a war on essentially the blood of Mother Earth right now. That is what's actually going on. Like there's a literal battle for blood of petrol products right now. So it's just very interesting how it all, if we look at this, it's like we're going to see fractals or synchronicities within our whole life, because water is the source of life. Biology, if you break down what biology actually is, it's about a droplet of water. And to me, this is about the water right now. And especially since we have Mars ruled planets with this, and I'm still looking at the chart for this upcoming new moon in Pisces, but we still have we want to look at Jupiter, we want to look at Neptune, because Pisces home is Jupiter and Neptune. So Neptune is at 1 degree of Aries here with this new moon chart. Saturn is at 3 degrees of Aries with this new moon chart. And the interesting part of this is both Jupiter and Neptune are active, because I'm still looking at this as a conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. It's just that they're 2 degrees apart from one another. Most times when we look at astrology, we want to see what's within 10 degrees of a sign. So 10 degrees would be considered a wide conjunction. And then we have points that are right on top of one another, which is like an exact conjunction. So this is 2 degrees. It's just called separating, because if we think about the energy, Saturn's moving forward away from Neptune. So the other part is Jupiter is in what's called at 15 degrees. Jupiter has gone direct. So Jupiter went direct this week on the 10th at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So Jupiter was in retrograde, is now moving forward, taking energy forward. We think about this as not only do we have these competing vortices, right? Not competing, but dual vortices. While these vortices do their thing, right? We also have planets that are influenced by the rotation of Earth. So when they're behind, when it looks like the rotation is behind, the energy is kind of moving. It looks, so say this is Jupiter, this is Earth. It looks, when a planet is in retrograde, it looks based on the rotation like it's behind. So the energy is like you're being pulled back, like you're trying to move forward, but you're pulled back. And it reminds me of like when you go to a carnival and you're like on the Velcro ride where you're like on the wall. That's what it reminds me of. So Jupiter is about spiritual expansion. Now, the cool part is that Jupiter is in a water sign and Pisces is a water sign. So by sign, there's a trine to all this Piscean energy, where I would say the exact trine would be, or more exact trine under this new moon in Pisces is between Jupiter in Cancer and Mars with this particular new moon energy. But as we see all of these planets in Pisces moving forward, now the nodes are not going to be moving forward because as these vortices go, also think about it this way. Here's the rotation and here's the nodes based on the elliptical point. So they're holding north and south. The nodes are moving like that. So eventually the nodes are going to be moving towards the sign of Aquarius with the north node and the south node being directly opposite will move to the sign of Leo. So they're going to enter those signs almost like, I don't want to say backwards, but that's the best way to describe it. They'll start out at the anaretic degrees of Aquarius and Leo, 29 degrees. So it's almost like they get like a Benjamin. I almost like to say like the nodes are like Benjamin Button. Like they have all this knowledge and then they have to like clear. It's like if you think of karma clearing, we come in with the knowledge of the past life and then the nodes take us forward into the new life. This is why astrology is like just, it's art and science. It's just high level love. It is our language that the universe gave us. So anyway, so with Jupiter in Cancer, Venus is in Aries at 15 degrees on an exact square. So a square is 90-degree angle to the cardinal sign of Cancer. So Aries is a cardinal sign. And if we think of what are cardinal signs, think of the seasons. So they represent our equinoxes and our solstices. So Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, we are in our new cardinal season. Cancer being the summer solstice sign. Then we have fall, which is Libra, and then winter, which is Capricorn. So if we want to just think of that as like a basic overview. But with this particular new moon, we have Venus square to Jupiter. So when I look at this, I want to kind of look at this as like a ping pong table. I'm like, okay, so the energy is locked. If we think about a square, that's locked energy. Now, some astrologers will be like, oh my God, squares are terrible. I mean, there's some extremely high level CEOs have charts full of squares. So we want to kind of look at the fact that, you know, it's locked energy between Venus and Jupiter because Venus in the sign of Aries is very kind of steadfast on, in many ways, I want to say, I think Aries gets a bad rep, and it's not because I'm an Aries, but gets a bad rep on being impulsive And with Venus and Aries, this is like, let's look at it from the basics. The divine masculine, Mars, the divine feminine, Venus. So let's just look at it like from a divine masculine, divine feminine, these forces working in a vortex, right? If we think of just isolating Mars and Venus in a vortex. And by the way, we can isolate any of these planets in a vortex, right? Or in a spiral. So in a spiral. We'll just say a spiral. So if we think about this energy, right? If we think of the fact that tangible masculine, logical masculine is in a very undefined sign right now. So the undefined sign Pisces is called a mutable sign, wants to move like the water. And Aries, Venus, with Venus and Aries, the divine feminine in Aries is in a cardinal sign, wants to lead, then this is going to be an interesting upcoming month or season, because this energy is cultivating something of the new moon as before we head into this new season. And we're going to have a very active Aries season. It's going to be like so fast. Time is going to feel like it is moving. If time feels fast right now, time is going to feel like it is moving so fast over the upcoming weeks. And so stay as grounded as possible, but having Mars in the sign of Pisces can be quite healing. And so if you're a divine masculine listening to this, like if you're identifying, you're like, hey, I'm a provider, etc., for family, and that's generally what I try and read for, is like for people, protectors and healers and people trying to stay grounded. Where, say, the divine masculine would find ground is just have a sacred space daily for the next 4 to 5 weeks. Please, I urge you. If you've got a family that's loud, if you've got a lot of chaos going on, make 5 to 10 to 15 minutes a day for silence, and make it known, communicate it. Because the difficult part right now is with Mercury and Pisces, there might be a lot of like unspoken. So it's creating a lot of space. Divine masculine. I'm reading for the divine masculine right now. And creating a lot of space to process away. Even like, say you're a divine masculine and you're like, I've got the most fiery Mars. Like, say you have a Mars in Leo and you just like, you're good, you're an extrovert, etc. The most extroverted of signs, I would even say, like, please find like a dark room, sit in there. You don't have to have any other practice, just be in silence. Get it out of your body. Because what happens with this energy, even if you're the most processing extroverted person, this could actually be a time where you're internally holding things. And the way I see it is it's having to like get it out. I have been going through all the Pisces stuff, and I, even just to get through these videos, I have to make 2 cups of ginger lemon tea, because I am having to it's like purging things out of your body. So divine masculines, please just give yourself that space. So I'm going to sit with that. And then you can go back to your regular connection with others. Divine feminine energy, this is going to be a test. So the one thing is the divine feminine energy, I think is holding a lot. There's like unprocessed stuff coming through. So it's almost like with the next few weeks ahead is it's not like trudging through, but it's almost like the warrior spirit. So with the square to Jupiter, it's almost like having to allow yourself to rely on others. And it's such a tough thing to say to all this Aries energy coming through, but it's like, where can you kind of allow others to help? And I really, as an Aries, am reading this with like grip because it's like, but everything has to be taken care of. So when I'm reading this, like if I were to read this as somebody's chart, I'd be like, okay, there are times for yes, you can do it all, and times for no, you can't do it all. And then times for recognizing when you have to say you can't do it all because of all this. And this is just bringing, and remember, this is cultivating energy. It's not going to be fixed all at once. It's lessons. So I'm not going to discuss Pluto and Uranus quite yet with this chart. So the way I'm going to step back is say, divine masculine, divine feminine, and now cohesion. So where the cohesion takes place here is, I just heard through Mars, is because Aries is Mars ruled and Mars is in Pisces. The cohesion takes place between water and fire, the elements of water and fire. So I just hear through simple discussion, simple expression, creativity. I keep saying creativity. Planting seeds, like literal, like hands in the ground, that'll start to happen as we go towards Taurus season. But I would just say, the rage that's going to bubble up because with Mars and the Aries, there is kind of this hidden rage. And it's not that rage expressed is bad. It's that like when you have trauma and the rage starts to come up, it's just recognizing where it's at in your body. So like even with, for example, if you woke up and felt a lot of energy today, and didn't know where it was coming from, that is very Mars North Node right now. And so just like sitting with your body, like this morning, I had to like wait to record. I was going to go an hour. I went an hour later than I thought I would, just because of the fact that I needed to sit with where was I feeling this rage. And I was feeling it through my right shoulder. And I just sat with that for a moment, put my hand, and I'm like, where is that coming from? And then it takes me back to like different points. So it's just like working with mind, body, and like being like, where is this coming from? So I think that's where the cohesion is in your own life. Okay, so that is the new moon in Pisces. That will be on the 18th of March, 2026, 9:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. So there's a couple charts. So the way I'm going to do this is live. I do everything live. There's a reason, because there's so much AI out there and so much curated stuff that I just think that my contribution to this is just not being perfect. You can't be perfect. So that's how I'm going to step back and be like, I'm a real human who makes real mistakes. I mean, I did one of my last videos. I think my voice kept messing up. I lose my voice as of late a lot. I do have a Mercury and a water sign, so I have a very sensitive voice. Okay, so let's see, what time did they? So I'm looking at X, VCSO Sheriff NM, and they are a verified account. This is for the Bernalillo County Sheriff. It is their X account out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I am discussing the recent developments in the case of this missing general, William Neal McCassland. So I'm just going to reference this tweet. You can look it up on X. I'm sure they have it probably posted on their website as well. But The Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office continues the missing, and this was at, if I wanted to get this detailed, I could look at the time they put out the tweet. March 12th, 2026, 5:41 p.m. I'm not sure what coast that would be. I'm guessing that's East Coast time for me. So I guess would that be 3 for them? 3:41 p.m.? Okay. So continues the missing person investigation into the disappearance of 68-year-old William Neal McCassland, last known to have been at or near his residence on the area of Quail Run Court, Northeast, on the morning of Friday, February 27th. A silver alert remains in effect, and Mr. McCassland remains missing. If you would like to read the rest, the parts that I'm gonna just point out. So the chart that I looked at on my live stream was his original. So on February 27th at approximately 10 a.m., there was a repairman at the residence, interacted with Mr. McCassland at approximately 11:10 a.m. Mrs. McCassland Wilkerson left the home for a medical appointment. So at approximately 12:04 p.m., she returned, and then his phone and his glasses, and it said wearable devices were located at the residence. Mrs. McCassland Wilkerson began attempting to locate Mr. McCassland and contacted family and friends. At approximately 3:07 p.m., she reported him missing, and the investigation began immediately. Okay, so we have time points here. The time point that I have on my previous video is just from the general. It's February 27th at 11 a.m. in Albuquerque. So that's the chart that I looked at, plus or minus. So even when I read it, I looked at pluses or minuses here based on anytime we look at a time point. This is why knowing your astrology time is so important. It gives us very specific timing on what's called your angles. And your angles are going to give us what's called your ascendant, descendant, midheaven, and nadir. And it's going to give us your houses. So this is why knowing your time is so imperative. I work with both. The reason is sometimes I work with people that are adopted, don't know times, or a lot of times will send me a time, and then months later, years later, we'll be like, oh my God, we found our birth certificate and I had the wrong time the whole time. So I like to read things from a more if we're scientists, we want to look at all the data. And so the data of the timing is so imperative, but we don't always have that. So I don't have a birthday for him. I just have a birth year. I tried to find his birthday. Obviously, because of his job, his birthday is probably not on the internet. So if somebody finds a birthday, oh my God, I would love to see it. I'd love to see it. So we're just going to look at that initial chart. There's just a couple of things that stand out to me before I even get into astrology. Here's the part that stands out to me. I'm going to read this whole part because I've been thinking about this. I was going to go live about this yesterday, but when I read this part, I had to sit with it. So as the investigation has progressed, BCSO has identified items believed to be unaccounted for from the residence. Investigators believe Mr. McCassland may have been wearing the shirt shown in the attached photo. So there's a photo, he has a button down. He has I don't even know what I would consider it. It looks greenish in the photo, but it also looks like a white or not khaki, like a beige. This is very like that photo. Like, do you see a blue or a gold dress? Anyway, so, all right. While there is currently no evidence indicating foul play. Investigators are examining all available information as the case remains active. Investigators have expanded a neighborhood canvas to more than 700 homes, requesting security video and information. Additional search efforts have included drone operations, helicopter support, ground searches with search and rescue teams, and canine searches. To date, BCSO has not received any confirmed sighting or confirmed video showing Mr. McCassland leaving the area or indicating a direction of travel. Search efforts and investigative follow-up are ongoing. And then the other part is, so they found a gray U.S. Air Force sweatshirt. They also said that additional items missing with include his hiking boots, wallet, and a .38 caliber revolver with a leather holster. So there was a U.S. Air Force sweatshirt 1.25 miles east of the residence, and that was found on Saturday, March 7th. So I'm going to start. They collected and processed it. No blood was detected. Additional analysis is pending. The sweatshirt has not been confirmed by family or friends to be associated with Mr. McCassland. Here's what I freaking thought. The first thought that went through my head when I saw that sweatshirt is I lived in Cali. Okay, I lived in Cali in a really rough area. A lot of times, look, this is just through observation of just trying to walk my dog and getting to go poop. All right, it's just when you live in a tough area, certain. Oh, look at this. Stop. Okay, you got me on live stream. My ex live stream knocked off. Okay. Hold on. If you're still on live with me. Oh, Lord. Okay. Dang. Part 2. So if you're on my... Man. Am I live? I got knocked off. If you watch my ex, I'm still on my YouTube, but I get knocked off of this all the time. So I'm still doing it. Okay. So the thing with the sweatshirt, here's how I'll kind of maybe discuss kind of around it, I guess, is like I almost hear like sealed with a kiss or stamp of approval, or just put 2 and 2 together, okay? Like East Coast, West Coast kind of vibes, right? Just put 2 and 2 together, what I'm trying to say with that. So when I saw that US Air Force sweatshirt, it could be like an indicator for the wife to be like, he's good, he's in good hands. Or it can be an indicator for like being like, yeah, we got him. Like we took him. So there's a couple ways, and like that's how I view that. But March 7th, so on March 7th, so Venus entered Aries the day before. And so March 7th, we had the sun conjunct Mercury. So Mercury is in retrograde. It was a Sun Mercury cazimi. And then we also had Venus conjunct Neptune. The next day we had Venus conjunct Saturn, but the energy of these conjunctions were between the 7th and the 8th. So when they found the sweatshirt, there were 3 major conjunctions in the sky. And I would say that the Venus, Neptune, Saturn in Aries is called a stellium. So part of the stellium, I think he's very active with these transits. So I think it's also important to note he is very much linked to all these astrological alignments. So There are 2 charts. Hopefully, if I am not live, through this, then I'm still live, hopefully on YouTube, but whatever, I'm gonna keep going, and I'm just gonna say, like, please don't block my blessings. Obviously, you'd be taking me off these lives because 'cause you'd be blocking my blessings. Anyway, so this is my gift, and this is what I bring to the world. This is how I serve. So, and I'm talking to my ex live. So, if you wanna find the full thing, I'm on YouTube, and I'm gonna possibly go live on different platforms after this week. I'm not sure where I'm gonna find a home, but here we are. So, the missing chart is interesting because on the day he was missing, regardless of the time, the day itself, we had the moon and go over Jupiter. And Jupiter, with the upcoming week next week, is Venus is going to be square Jupiter. So one of the things that stood out in my initial reading, and I do have my tarot cards here, but I'm not going to get to tarot quite yet. And then I'm going to look at this chart. I'm going to look at a second chart, and then I'm going to add another chart. So there's 3 charts that I really want to focus on here. So this is the first chart. This is from the 27th of February. I set it for 11 just as a general time. I'm going to stick with that chart just as a general idea for the general. And so the thing that sticks out is the moon is very active with this chart. The moon in Cancer is Cancer's like home planet. So in astrology, we call the sun and moon planets, even if they're not planets, but we consider them planets just for our reading purposes. So the moon went over Jupiter in the moon's home sign. So the moon is super happy here. And Jupiter is about expanding knowledge, expanding spirituality. The other thing that sticks out to me is that the sun went over the north node. Now, this is going to be very important for another chart that I look at, which is like a very illuminated place to go karmically. And Venus and Mercury were aligned, or about to be aligned, because Mercury's going retrograde. Mercury's at 22 degrees of Pisces. Venus is at 21 degrees of Pisces. So there was alignments in the sky. There is a lot about communications, about a lot about mentality, a lot about could be about mental health in many ways. Pisces is a very sensitive sign, and logic and reason here are with the sun, and the sun is also aligned with Pallas Athena and the North Node. So the things about this chart is, when I was reading on my last live, some of the points that kind of stood out to me were I kept getting, he's in a liminal space. He could be in a liminal space. I just kept hearing liminal space. Then I saw the moon, and then I was a reference. I don't know if it was a metaphor, because sometimes, whether we want to call it spirit or intuition, speaks to us in these metaphors. I saw 3-eye atlas. I pulled the 8 of wands, which is the 8 of fire energy, and I heard incoming, like a message was received, whether it's from 3-eye atlas, etc. And next week, and let me just Google it to check the data. On March 16th, the interstellar comet is set to reach its closest approach to Jupiter. So Jupiter there's an important story here with Jupiter. There's 3-eye atlas. I don't know if he's associated. Maybe it was metaphorical. There's some people who don't believe in 3-eye atlas, but there's an astronomer on YouTube named Ray's Astronomy, and he was taking incredible photos and analysis of 3-eye atlas. So believe what you believe. Maybe it's just a metaphor, but that is some stuff that came up when I looked at this with my tarot cards. So the next chart I'm going to look at is 3:07 p.m. on the same date. I'm going to look at the exact timing to see the angles. So this is when, this is when the silver alert was put out. So this is the same date, but just for 3:07 p.m. set at Albuquerque time. So I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to put chart 2, and I'm going to put silver alert. Or maybe not silver alert. No, maybe chart 2, silver alert. So February 27th, I'm going to set for 3:07 p.m. And this is Albuquerque, New Mexico. And what I want to look at here is necessarily, oh yeah, this is an alert issued. But I'm going to look at the angles of the chart because this gives me an exact time. And I can kind of see the angles of the silver alert. And remember the angles: ascendant, descendant, midheaven, nadir being the deepest point of the chart. Ascendant, kind of like the face that the chart has. Midheaven is the public point. Descendant is like, if we think about a mirror of people reflecting us, people, places, and things. That's how I look at it. It can be kind of the hidden information as well. So the ascendant of this chart is at 4 degrees of Leo. Descendant is immediately opposite, 4 degrees of Aquarius. Pluto is conjunct this at 4 degrees of Aquarius. The midheaven is at 24 degrees of Aries. What's conjunct this? Eris, which is a fixed point asteroid, goddess of in many ways chaos or war, with Ceres, which is a asteroid of healing. And then exact opposite in Deer Point is 24 degrees of Libra. So this gets into more of the grit here. Where do I want to look? There's a Pluto on the descendant, so investigative energy here. Then I want to look at the 8th house, and all these Pisces planets are in the 8th house. All the Pisces information I'm discussing is in the 8th house here. The other part about this is when I want to look at the 12th house. Well, guess who's in the 12th house? The moon and Jupiter. So I'm looking at this as we don't have information, but what information I said on my tarot card reading checks out with this chart, because the moon is very much part of this. Moon is mothers, divine feminines, moon cycles. So we had an eclipse cycle. Community. So I'm just going to leave it there for a moment. And then I'm going to also look at another chart. This one is for the next day. I'm going to fact check it before I open the chart. But what time did the United States strike Iran? Now, I have a time that I already looked up, but I want to have it when I Google it live. I didn't spell that right. On February 28th, 2026. So this is AI overview. I don't generally use it, but since it's coming through AI overview, I don't usually work with AI overview. It's on the top of my page. I'm not opening it, but here's what's at the top of my page. On February 28th, 2026, the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes against Iran with initial attacks beginning around 1:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Times, which corresponds approximately 8:15 a.m. to 10 a.m. local time Iran. Operation termed Epic Fury. So, hold on. Let me just make sure. Okay. I'm going to put this chart in at around 10 a.m. in Tehran. Okay. So I'm going to put in Epic Fury time chart in Tehran for the 28th. And I'm just going to say a prayer. So this is 10. We'll put 10:15 since it's what Tehran, right? So it was starting around 10 a.m. in Tehran, but it said 1:15. So I'm going to set it for 10 o'clock, just to have a general chart. We'll have a general chart for an event chart. I'm going to save this to my computer for a moment. Okay. So this is the strike chart. This is the strike chart. And if my computer slows down, I saved it, so just in case my internet slows. Here's the thing that sticks out to me. Whether it was 15 minutes earlier, later, or within that half an hour to an hour range, that Uranus is conjunct the ascendant of this chart, which is, I've done Donald Trump's chart, and Donald Trump has Uranus by transit conjunct his midheaven. So Uranus is all up in this chart for this. Interesting enough. So, okay, let me just discuss. We want to look at when we have a time of a chart, we want to look at the angles of the chart. We have the ascendant, descendant, midheaven, nadir. Let's start there. So the ascendant's in Taurus at 23 degrees on what's called the the fixed star of Algol or Medusa, so chaos in many ways, with Uranus, the planet of chaos, conjunct that. The deepest part of the chart, the nadir, has the moon at the anaretic degree of Cancer. Now, I've stated for the Venezuela attacks, the moon was in a full moon with Cancer. This is the anaretic degree, the last degrees of Cancer, and the nadir is very close at 4 degrees of Leo. The descendant is at 23 degrees of Scorpio, and the midheaven has Pluto conjunct at 4 degrees of Aquarius. This also links into the chart of the silver alert because that chart has Pluto conjunct the descendant. This chart has Pluto conjunct the midheaven. So this is something that I would look at a tarot card for, but let me step back for a moment. And I kind of think if I were to just have an educated guess, a hypothesis here, that if he's still on this planet, there's a possibility that he was called in to help or called in for his expertise to advise. Or if that is like, if I'm looking at this from a very like more positive side of this possibility, I wouldn't rule it out. Pluto is kind of the hidden side of things. So the other part is I want to look at the house that the sun is in. And the north node is still aligned with the sun in the 11th house of communities. Pallas Athena is in the 11th house there. So Pisces 11th house is very public for a chart that kind of wants to not be so extroverted. This chart is forced to be extroverted. So say this was a person coming to me with their chart, I would say as much as you don't want to be extroverted, this chart is forcing you to be extroverted. So it's like what happens kind of underneath with the moon at the lower part of the chart has to be brought out into public in a very vulnerable way with Pisces in the 11th house. So there's a lot of, not only it's a split 11th house, it's between Pisces and Aries, and that Neptune, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is right there with it in the 11th house. So this is a huge story of the Neptune-Saturn conjunction, or Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries. So that Saturn-Neptune alignment we had on the 20th is in the 11th house of this chart. 20th of February is bringing back to the 11th house of this chart. Very public, community part of the chart. So I'm going to ask some tarot questions, and then that'll be a wrap for the day. So if you want to go back and watch my live stream where I did more tarot readings, I kind of go out to sea with that. So some of the points that I want to say is in my last readings with General Neil McCassland, he was in a liminal space, something about the moon being very active with this, three-eye atlas, divine feminine. So that's where I'm going to start to pull from very specific questions today. So the first question is, so I'm going to ask, what am I allowed to know right now regarding General Neil McCassland and him missing? The Phoenix, the rebirth. So this is also related. Transformation, also related to Pluto and Scorpio. So these are the hidden realms that we're not allowed to see yet. If we think of rebirth, this is about this man, something about what this man did, and we know based on news reports, was also related to UFO, and possibly this could be disclosure. I maybe wanted to discuss with Steven Spielberg's chart. And look, I'm not a movie person. I never have been. There's movies that I love, like E.T. I love E.T. But I get, like, Hollywood is so Hollywood that I get Steven Spielberg and James Cameron mixed up all the time. To me, they're like the same person. I don't know why I say that, but like when I looked at Steven Spielberg, I looked at his natal chart because I don't look at charts of somebody that I don't know was like, I look at confirmed abusers, missing charts, event charts. But if I don't think somebody, like, I don't have enough information about him. So I looked at his chart and he has a lot of like Pluto type energy, but he also has a lot of Jupiter type energy. So I don't know if he's part of, like, if they ever cross paths, but this chart is very much like about the Phoenix rising, meaning here's why. So I'm talking about February 28th. Pluto is on the midheaven. So that literally is the Phoenix rising. Pluto at the highest point. Pluto has gone through this journey and gone to the highest point of this chart. So there is something about Pluto in the light, the Phoenix rising. So just going to ask a few more questions. And let me make sure all my cards are face down. And then I'll do a good shuffle, but I'll make sure they're face down. So General Neil McCassland, are you still on planet Earth? The High Priestess. I kind of feel like it's like, hey girl, like, what's your wisdom on this? What's your intuition about this? Let me pull one more card before I speak. The Magician. One and two, the ones and twos. The ones and twos. The puller, who's the puller of the strings? Someone is the puller of the strings. He has a lot of knowledge. And this is 1 and 2. So this is 1 and 2. 1 and 2. 2. 1. 1 and 2. And this is 1 and 2. The Akashic Records. I do think it's interesting. I saw this on, I think, CNN. Possibly. It's not 100% it was CNN or Fox, the clips. And his wife was like, maybe a mother, like his wife said something about a mothership. And it was in jest in a certain way, but I don't necessarily think he is. And I have like a very sci-fi download that I don't know quite how to like put it into words. But I am going to reference the moon as like watching the moon, watching the cycles of the moon, watching about data presented about the moon. The moon is also our lineage. And in this case, I wonder if there's a deep reverence for the moon. He did bring up his mother in the last reading. I'm only going to ask 2 more questions. If you were here in a conversation with me, right next to me, Mr. General, what would you say? Justice. He would say justice, alignment of the heart. So one of the things that last night when I was meditating, I saw him put his boot down, like in the ground, like stomping his right foot down and being like, I am not for this. And so I do wonder if he was maybe privy to the information of what would happen the next day. Because alignment of the heart, let me just briefly do like a keyword, and this is 11. So it's like 11s, 1s and 2s again are coming through. 1s and 2s. 1s and 2s. He's saying like on the 1s and 2s. Look beyond the surface to the truth of the matter. Your decisions will have consequences. So I think this is in relation to like the technology that would be utilized and the knowledge of what was about to go down. And it made me think about, there's this woman named Glam Ham. I know her from TikTok. She's also on X. And she has videos of like the space station, International Space Station. And she is at like a post of like things, like whether it's debris or from like the oil refineries. Like I was thinking of maybe it's like debris from all of the oil in the air, basically. Um, or, you know, if the planet has watchers, he would know. I do think he would know if the planet has watchers. I think this man would have maybe had an experience or two on his own based on his history. Let me just see if there's any keywords here. Coalescence of every, let me see. Energy and power is the main download of this card. Energy and power, according to Izzy Ivy's book. Energy and power of this piece, so this is an art piece, is exactly like the main download I received right at the beginning. The seed of this deck unfurled from. So this is what the whole deck of this deck is from. So justice. Rather than objects, the gold one showed me visual codes through particular colors, shapes, flow, and juxtaposition of information. This image depicts a central sun being, reminding us that the new earth is within ourselves, located in our hearts. It invites us to consider that we, the people, are the portals and hold the keys to the future we wish to see. She reminds us of our times in Lemuria, and the incredible heaven-like places everywhere across our beautiful planet, should we choose to see it that way. By working with nature rather than against her, this makes me want to cry. It almost feels like he's saying, okay, against her, through balance and awareness of our soul's integrity, we can make decisions that will affect us and the broader biocosm that is Gaia. Paradise, if we work in harmony with her incredible gifts and let her flourish. So if you want to read more, this is Izzy Ivy's card deck and book, Unveiling the Golden Age. And this is a painting. Harmony with Gaia is how I feel this card, justice. So I'm going to pull one more card to see if there's any residual messages, because I don't necessarily think when I say on planet Earth, I don't know if he's biologically, it's just such a weird download that I almost feel like saying it out loud would be a little too much of a Steven Spielberg movie. Because I see the moon. I see the moon, but I don't, maybe I'm just not ready. I'm not ready to say what I see. So let me see what this last card says. Shadow cleansing. And whenever I get this card, I have to pull another card for clarity, because this is El Diablo. Capricorn. Old paradigm shit. Old paradigm, old running paradigm. Okay, I don't need to pull another card. I need to read a quote. This card, Shadow Cleansing, is about this quote. So this is from Scapegoat Exit, Rebecca. She's an LMFT, and this is from her Substack. And I have this quote open, and I was like, I don't know or if I'm going to have to read it or need to read it or what. But she does a lot of research about scapegoat family system trauma. The United States is a Cancer sun. July 4th, 1776. And I keep seeing these Cancer moons come through as like attack charts, event charts, etc. So then it got me thinking, and I'm not a therapist. I only have like a certificate in harm reduction. I did a whole thing, but we had a unit, and I really am very much part of my chart is to discuss trauma. So scapegoat family trauma is on an individual scale, but the way I see this is in the family system, IFS, internal family system of the United States. These systems are a broader system, like broader parts to a smaller whole. And so here's her quote from Rebecca. Is it Camp? I'll get to her name in one moment. The scapegoat is the one who sees the rot in the family tree. The rot in the family tree that everyone is pretending is healthy. This is from Rebecca C. Mandeville, Scapegoat Exit on Substack. She has a book, but this is from, she also created this Substack, and it's been very, very helpful. And I see this as the paradigms. The paradigms. I think he saw the rot in the paradigm. So whether he's serving or whether he's with the moon, his mother, quote unquote, he could be saying, hey, I'm with my mother. I'm good. Like, I'm totally good. He doesn't feel in distress. He doesn't feel angry. He feels at peace. He feels like the decision that he made was totally cool. I'm not even going to get to a personal experience I had out in the desert, because I feel like, as much as I want to continue with this, I feel like this story is going to continue with next week. So I'm just going to say, like, thank you if you watch my live streams. My name is kristy-belich. I'm an astrologer, tarot card reader, and I, do comedy sometimes. So I just intuitively do my readings, and I just want to say thank you for being here. If you have any questions for me, my show notes, you can find me on my Linktree, and I hope you have a great weekend. I'll be live. If I'm not, I'm going to go live intuitively. So the next time I'm live, I will announce on my X, which is also kristy-belich. And this is Trust Your Glitter, Intuitive Politics, Astrology and Tarot. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good weekend.